Okay, let's get started. My name is Rob Koyfin. I'm the founder, CEO of Koyfin. I also have on with me Connor McNeil. Connor is doing a bunch of stuff at Koyfin, including running the Twitter content that you all follow. If you don't, please follow us on Twitter. Post a lot of good stuff on the market and individual stocks. Connor also started taking on some product management responsibilities. And so we released a new feature today, or recently, called My Portfolios, which I'll go over. And so Connor was running that and did a great job. And so that's a really exciting feature that we all will share with you and explain to you in a sec. And so just some housekeeping items. This presentation or this webinar is being recorded. And so we'll send you a recording at the end of the presentation over email, so you don't have to take notes or furiously be able or write down kind of like what we're talking about. So we'll send you the recording so that you can go back and kind of see any parts of the demo that you would like. Let me kind of share the agenda for the call just so you all are aware of what's going to be happening. Basically, what we're going to do today is go over the model portfolio functionality. So model portfolio is very important kind of workflow for a lot of advisors and FAs. So we're just going to go start to finish over creating a portfolio of a model portfolio. We're going to go over the new functionality that we've released in model portfolios. So style box functionality, X-ray functionality. We rejiggered and basically revamped the risk section a little bit, and then you can also now share via Teams, so you can share with a team as well. I'll go over that, and then we'll go over the My Portfolio functionality. Basically, model portfolios are hypothetical portfolios based on asset allocation. My Portfolios is a new feature that we came out, and think of them as actual portfolios with actual cost basis and lots and P&L. So that's something we introduced recently, and I'll talk about how that fits in and where we're going there. And then talk about our general roadmap and have a Q&A. If you do have a question at any point in the webinar, feel free to ask it in the box below where it says Q&A. Connor will be on hand to answer questions, and so he'll either answer them via text and type the answer, or he'll leave the questions for the end, and we could go over that more dynamically. And I see Tiffany Davison raised your hand. I'm not sure if Tiffany, you meant to raise your hand, but if you can ask your question if you do have one in the Q&A panel, and we'll be happy to answer that. So let's kind of get started with this agenda on the model portfolio. So model portfolios here is kind of where we have this homepage of model portfolio functionality. So you have, these are all the model portfolios that I have. I'd say one of the kind of like newer features that we released to make sure that you all know is we do have now this column selection where you can select a lot of these different calculations that are related to model portfolio. So for example, if you wanted to have your Kalmar ratio or your dividend yield or your downside capture or your Sharpe ratio or relative return or total return, you can select those columns, and those columns will be displayed for all your portfolios. And then you could sort of rank by this and sort by this. So that's a pretty nice feature that we've been asked about that we recently released. But for those of you that are new to model portfolios, you just create a model portfolio here. You start into this input dialog. You can upload a CSV, so you don't have to type this out manually. You can upload a CSV, but I'm just going to upload this portfolio that I create, which is going to be called my core portfolio. It's going to be based on weights. It's going to start at $100,000. This benchmark here is you could select your benchmark. So the way that our benchmarks work is that you can select an ETF, mutual fund, or another model portfolio if you want to do a custom benchmark. So if you're looking to benchmark versus like the S&P 500, you would choose SPY. If you're looking to benchmark versus something like a 60/40 portfolio, you would just have to create that 60/40 portfolio here, and then you could use that as a benchmark. So let me use my 60/40 portfolio here, and then some other kind of settings here in terms of when the portfolio starts, when the rebalancing periods occur. So let me do this on a quarterly basis, and my fee is going to be 1% on a quarterly basis. And then this is where you would input your tickers. So let's say I own QQQ as one, and then I will own the let's say Vanguard. Oops, this can be here. Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. So let me just put it here. And let's say I own TLT, and let's just say I own the Vanguard bond, Total Bond Index. Vanguard bond. Cool. Um, And so let's say my allocation here is going to be a little bit aggressive. So let's say I'm 40% QQQ and 40% total stock market, and then I'm 10% TLT and 10% total bond market. And so that's my allocation. You can see here that the first common date is being selected based on the common date of all these shares. So for example, one of these mutual funds probably starts trading in 2015. And that's why my first common date for this portfolio is 2015. So this is automatically selected here. We also give you the ability to make rebalances dynamically. So let's say that in one scenario, this was my allocation in 2015. But let's say I've been actually managing a hypothetical portfolio, model portfolio for many years. And let's say in kind of 2021, I got a lot more defensive versus bonds. So let's say I went to kind of like 45, 45, and then 5 and 5. That would kind of like represent the allocation, the target allocation that was rebalanced in 2021 and the allocation now. So you can reset or have different target allocations historically to really reflect if you've been managing a model portfolio and how that model portfolio changes over time. So let me actually run this portfolio. So I'm just going to create this portfolio. It's going to run in the background. It's going to create a portfolio. And so now this is my portfolio. This is called the core portfolio. That's my main portfolio. This is the performance over the past several timeframes. This is the dividend yield, the expense ratio, and this is my comparison versus the 60/40 portfolio, which I created previously prior to this call. Let me just show you kind of like what that is if I could find it here. Uh, we should have a filter button to make that easier. But my 60/40 portfolio, just so you know, is my Vanguard 500 index and my American bond funds index. So 60/40, just to give you a sense of what I'm comparing against. So let me kind of go back to my portfolio here, and should be here portfolio. This is kind of my summary page. This is my holdings table of what I hold. This is my kind of holdings chart. And this is kind of a new feature that we have. We have a equity style box. So these are values that look through to the underlying holdings. This data is provided to us by Morningstar. So this is all kind of Morningstar data. And because I'm kind of holding QQQ, it's a little bit more tilted towards growth. So I definitely have a growthy type of portfolio and large cap as well, because I'm holding some large cap indices. And when I look on the fixed income side, my portfolio, just because I have TLT and total bond market, TLT is a long duration or high duration fund or ETF. So pretty long duration treasuries in there. So that makes my portfolio pretty long term and pretty high credit. So just to give you a sense of the style boxes. We also have the exposure exhibits here, just being able to break down the core portfolio versus the 60/40 portfolio versus my benchmark. So this is on an asset allocation basis. I'm kind of overweight equities and underweight fixed income. And so because I made that dynamic change in 2021 by being very overweight equities, that's reflected here. And you could click on each one of these cells in the table to get the contribution or the breakdown of how this, for example, 89.8% is being aggregated from the holdings. I could also look at it on a sector basis to see which sectors I'm overweight, region, country, fixed income, credit, and maturity. I can also look at the performance chart. So looking at the performance chart over the past 10 years, I could see that my portfolio has done really well. And that's no surprise, just given my overweight exposure to equities and technology. And so obviously those segments have done fairly well. I'm underweight fixed income, and fixed income has not done well over the past couple of years, and that reflects the performance over the past kind of time frame. And I could also look at this on a rolling basis. So on a rolling basis, whether on a 3 year or 5 year period, I could show that my portfolio has just been beating the benchmark at every single point in time on a 5 year basis. So really, I look really smart in hindsight of being able to create this portfolio and sort of knowing what's happened historically. I then have my historical returns to see what the historical returns are. I have my risk metrics here. So we changed this a little bit. We just gave it a little bit more breathing room. Before it was a little bit scrunched, but this table is the same table we had before, which is the core portfolio and the benchmark. This drawdown exhibit is just a little bit larger, so I could see kind of like my biggest drawdowns here and the length to kind of see when those happened. And I could see the different stress periods of different market cells to see how my portfolio did. The drawdown chart is now here. So the drawdown chart is, we gave it its own big chart that people wanted to see. So you could see the drawdowns here on this chart. And then this new feature that we really like, called the holdings matrix. This is basically a look through analysis of all the holdings that are that my funds and my ETFs have. So even though I don't have any Microsoft directly, Microsoft is my biggest position here at 6.7% of my portfolio. Apple is another 6%. So you can see here that, Meta, Amazon, Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft are about 20% of my portfolio. So that's a really, really important kind of metric to know. Just by the way, if you have a portfolio and you have something directly, so let's say I have Microsoft directly as a holding, and I own 10% of that, and I have to take it out of, let's say here. Just want to show you how that changes the exposure exhibits. So now I have a line item here called direct, because I have a direct exposure to Microsoft, and so that's contributing to my overall portfolio exposure. So this is my overall portfolio exposure. This is the number of funds that hold this stock, and this is the breakdown of each one of these holdings. So my mutual fund, my QQQ, and how much they're contributing to the exposure of this stock. So a lot of good information here on the holdings matrix. This is something that folks were asking about in terms of functionality. So hopefully that's pretty useful. The other thing to mention is these kind of portfolios that I have. They can be viewed on the graphs pretty easily. So if I'm here in the security analysis, I could load my portfolio here. I think I called it core. And once I have it loaded here, I could look at the performance of core. So if I look at core and I look at 60/40, this is the portfolio that I was looking at before, which is my benchmark. But I could add other model portfolios that I have in my system. So I could look at my balanced portfolio, and I could look at my aggressive growth portfolio, whatever it is, and I could compare these on a normalized basis. So if I want to look at it on a 3 year basis or 5 year basis, I could do that easily. I could add QQQ or any other stock in here and compare the normalized performance. So really important flexibility of using the model portfolios in the charting tool here. And so this is the performance chart, which is normalized from 0 till whatever the performance is. I also have the historical graph, which gives you just the ability to look at the portfolio with other assets. So for example, if I wanted to look at the core portfolio versus the US 10-year yield, I could add the 10-year yield here. If I wanted to look at CPI year on year, I could add CPI, and all these charts are in the same chart. And I would use the legend here to make these separate charts. So this icon here, I would make this a separate chart, and I would probably make this a separate chart. And so now I have kind of these different 3 charts, which is easier to read. And this probably belongs as a bar chart, just because it's more, the frequency is monthly. So this may be easier as a bar chart. Let me just fix this over here so it doesn't annoy me. and then I could, look at it over whatever time period I wanted to. So kind of the flexibility to use these model portfolios in charts. You could also put them in watch lists. So if I have a watch list of, let's say, ETFs, and I wanted to add a ticker here, that's a model portfolio, just to track it here. And let me add my core portfolio here. That could be now one of the tickers here, core, and then I would get all the different metrics here, like price and standard deviation, whatever else I set up. So really kind of important functionality to be able to use these portfolios throughout the system. And then the last thing I wanted to mention on the sharing. So once you're inside a portfolio, once you have a model portfolio selected, you can share this portfolio with your team members. So you can kind of share it with, let's say I shared it with Connor.McNeil at Koyfin.com. So I would hit share. I think I spelled Connor's name wrong, but if you spell the user's name correctly, let me just put this as Dave because I know Dave is here and he's easier to spell. So if I want to share that with Dave, I would do that here and that would share it. The other thing is you could share it with a team. So let's say I have my product team or design team. This is multiple members, so I don't have to type each person individually. I could do that as well. The way that you set up a team is in this dialog over here under your profile. So if you were to set up a team, you would just go to teams, and these are the different teams that I have. So I could add my kind of, let's say, my research team here. And in my research team, I would kind of copy the email addresses of the people. So let's say it's Dave at Koyfin.com, and let's say it's Eddie at Koyfin.com. And you could copy paste the addresses in here. That would create this team, the research team. And then when I'm in my model portfolio here and I go to share it, I could put in the research team here instead of typing everyone's email individually. And so now the research team here is a share, and you can make that a viewer or editor access, meaning they could just view the model portfolio, or they can actually edit it by adding securities or changing the time frame or whatever it is. So that's really cool functionality. There's been a lot of nice traction there. So make sure that you're able to share that with your teams. So wanted to kind of move on to the next item of our agenda, which is my portfolios. So the way, I just went over functionality, which is called model portfolios. We recently built a function which we introduced. You have this little new icon here called My Portfolio. And the distinction on a high level, if you think about it, is My Portfolio, again, is a portfolio that has actual positions, actual P&L, actual cost basis. And that's what My Portfolios is tracking and going to be tracking. Whenever we release features, we always like to release things incrementally to get feedback from our users. So I think you saw that with model portfolios. We released model portfolios in September, and we've been adding features nonstop to that. And we'll have a similar kind of concept with my portfolios. I think for the audience on this webinar, we have a lot of financial advisors. And so with financial advisors, you all typically have a lot of clients, or you have more than one portfolio that you're managing and you're thinking about. So a lot of the functionality that we'll be building is going to be really more suitable than it is today. In version 1 of my portfolio, you can track one portfolio. You can have many accounts, but it's one portfolio. I think ultimately what we're going to be building is a tool for financial advisors to be able to track multiple portfolios and all your clients' portfolios. And so we'll have integration with your custodians, or we'll have integrations with your reporting tools, and be able to kind of suck in all the different portfolios, all your different client portfolios in here, so you could quickly be able to see what somebody has, what their gains are, what their losses are, what their performance is, what their exposures are, and you'll be able to kind of quickly toggle through your clients. So that's kind of functionality that we'll be creating in terms of integrating and creating the ability to look at multiple portfolios. But let me go through kind of like what one portfolio looks like today. So I'm just going to create my portfolio here. You get this dialog now, or you get this dialog initially where you could add these accounts. So a portfolio could have multiple accounts, and ultimately, as many of you know, your clients have multiple accounts that you're aggregating into one. So this is my account one. You can kind of add the tickers, and we have quantity, cost basis, and purchase date. But let me just upload a CSV because I um, have a CSV here, and it's going to be a little bit easier to upload. So I uploaded the CSV with ticker, quantity, cost, and you can notice here that you can have lots here. So you can have kind of the ability to really analyze when you purchase something and have different cost bases for things. So I'm just going to hit next. I'm going to match all my fields here: symbol, quantity, cost, purchase date. Those match. I'm going to submit it. And I'm going to now get this dialog box to just make sure that everything is looks okay. So this is just a confirmation that things are looking okay. I'm just going to scroll here. If they're US positions, the match will 99.9% of the time be accurate. The way kind of this works here is when we have sometimes these international positions. So that's going to be when kind of like this could be something where you just need to check something. So here, ATG is, I believe, a UK stock. So I'm going to leave that as Great Britain and then hit import. And that's going to import all my positions here. I can make this cash position, let's say 100 or let's say 1,000. And then I'm going to add another account. And so this account too, I'm going to do another import. And so this import is going to have some slightly different positions, but a lot more kind of like international, or a couple more international tickers. And let me import those. And so here you could see that I have kind of some French stocks, some US stocks, some UK stocks, and with different lot levels. And let me hit import. And so account two, let me just call that maybe my IRA account. Account one, I'm going to call my let's call that my whatever main account. Cool. So my main account, my IRA account, and I'm gonna create my portfolio. That will load up all the holdings that I have here. And so you have this kind of like initial page with your profit and loss. Um, and so what's cool here is that you can kind of be able to click on a position like Chipotle and see kind of which accounts hold it, where the lots are, and what the market value and the P&L is from each lot. We've spent a lot of time here thinking about kind of P&L from FX and P&L excluding FX, just because we are a company that covers all global stocks. So we do have to handle all currencies. I know most of the folks here will probably just be dealing with US stocks, but we do have some pretty good tracking in terms of if you want to understand where your P&L is coming from, FX or non-FX, and then your total P&L, including both. And we also do have a concept of total return. So your P&L is kind of like your price appreciation, but we do try to estimate your total return as though you had reinvested your funds into dividends. So, for example, Visa and Mastercard here, they do pay a dividend yield, and so the total return is going to be a little bit higher than the P&L. Other companies that don't pay a dividend, that's going to be the same. So I think Meta just initiated a dividend, so that's not going to be apparent, or that's not going to be kind of that obvious here. But this kind of treating of dividends, treating FX is really important, something that we focused on. And if you wanted to kind of expand all the lots, you can do that here. If you wanted to group by account, or you wanted to group by sector, or you wanted to group by industry, or kind of the original grouping, you could do that here, as well as choose different P&L or different performance attributes. So you can kind of go here and look at the performance, or in the portfolio tools, look at the cost and total return since inception and stuff like that. So that's kind of the P&L tab. On the exposure tab, this is going to be pretty familiar to you from the model portfolio exposure tab. The only difference is we don't have a benchmark here currently. So this concept is a little bit more of a pie chart of the portfolio. So I own a lot of Chipotle and Meta because I'm a really good and smart stock picker. And so that's about kind of like more than half of my portfolio. And so I could see kind of like what it looks by security, what it looks like by sector, right? So I could see I'm very overweight consumer and communication services. You could see what it looks like by industry, by asset class, which for me is mostly equities. and then by country as well. So seeing kind of like what the distribution is by country. And then this analysis tab is really kind of like what we're how we're marrying just that how we're marrying some of the fundamental and valuation metrics that we have and some of the watch list functionality that you may be familiar with with the my portfolio features. So it's really looking at my holdings. So these are all my holdings. There's no lots here. And then being able to see kind of like PE or price to sales or whatever other kind of fundamental columns you want. And then being able to, for example, see a portfolio weighted average for each one of these and a market cap weighted average. So I need to check why that is not working. Summary here. Okay, need to check that, but
Well, if you add weight, the weight column, if you go to columns, portfolio tools, and then add weight, this was just a small bug that I noticed this morning. We're working on a fix. So.
thank you. Okay, so weight has to be present here. Thanks, Connor. And then it automatically calculates that the weighted average column. So gives you a lot more insight into kind of like the valuation and really the fundamentals of your portfolio to the extent you're managing an equity portfolio. So that's kind of version one of my portfolios. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the roadmap and the vision of where we're going before we get into the Q&A. So over the next couple of months, just on a high level in terms of our roadmap, right now we're working on sleeves functionality. So looking at sleeves and allowing you to kind of have some core atomic portfolios and then be able to mix and match them with different weightings. So using basically portfolios in creating model portfolios from other model portfolios. So that's something that we've been asked about a lot. And that should be out in the next couple of weeks. We're working on client proposal reports. So this is a super exciting feature. We've been spending a lot of time on client proposals. We spoke to many of you in terms of your feedback. We've kind of iterated a lot on the designs and getting like the right flow. We've heard a lot of feedback that the current client proposal tools are just super clunky and very difficult to use. So we're coming out with something that's our vision of what a powerful and usable client proposal tool looks like. So that's working on that now, and that should be out at some point in June. We're working on a Schwab integration, and so to be able to kind of integrate your Schwab accounts and be able to pull them into create a model portfolio from your Schwab accounts. Ultimately, I think the flow is going to be that you're going to be able to link your My Portfolio tool to your Schwab account so that you have a cost basis there so you could actually manage all those portfolios. But initially, you'll be able to integrate your Schwab account into the model portfolio, into a model portfolio. And then we're working on a bunch of ETF and mutual fund exposure snapshots to give you all the asset allocation and duration and styles to be able to see that for ETFs and mutual funds. And then over the next kind of 2 to 4 months, custom series uploads. So be able to create a custom series and upload it, whether it's a credit series or a private equity series or whatever it is, and use that as a series of model portfolios. Attribution, and then in terms of kind of my portfolio enhancements, really allowing kind of short exposure, multiple portfolios, custodian integration, and then historical transactions are the big things. And then also bringing on SMAs onto the platform because I know a lot of folks asked about that. This is kind of our roadmap. I think, Cutter, did you have a poll that you wanted to share?
I think you might have to create the poll. I tried to create one, but my Zoom just isn't working on me today.
Got it. Okay. So I'll create the Zoom as we're sort of chatting. So let me pause there and see if there's any questions. So let's see here. So first question comes from Robert. I'm just going to read this out loud. In risk metrics, where we are now, sorry, as before, it would be nice to have context-sensitive help to explain how specific statistical terms are defined. For example, I see standard deviation, but don't know the measurement period. We should define that for you better, Robert. Thank you for that feedback. Just to give you a sense, all our risk metrics are from the start of the portfolio till the end of the portfolio. So we should be a little bit more explicit in that table of what we're doing. But all the risk metrics are from the start till the end. We should do a better job of defining, like, for example, the like upside downside capture, I think, is using monthly returns. So whenever there's a ambiguity on whether we're using daily, weekly, monthly returns, we should define that for you. So apologize for that. If you can, if you want to email our help desk and have any questions, we're happy to define those. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll define those a little bit better. Okay, and then so Connor, if you can mark that as answered. And then someone else said, is there any thought to be able to score a model portfolio or client portfolio, my portfolio, for example, assign a weighted value of various data points and give the portfolio a resultant score? That's definitely something that we've been asked about. It's not kind of like a huge feature that people have asked us about, but definitely if you wanted to score based on valuation or growth or whatever fees, and have a score, that's something that we'll probably ultimately do, although probably not in the immediate term. Will you be adding a portfolio optimizer? Yeah, we will be adding a portfolio optimizer. I'd say it's not in the near term as well. It's something that I think is a little bit kind of like a more technical workflow, and we'll be adding that this later on this year, but it's not in the next sort of couple of months. For upside downside capture, can you choose the time frame to measure my portfolios? And would the page label the dates the user would know? Yeah. So I think this is related. Tim, thanks for that question. I think this is related to what Robert asked. Right now, it's using the entire period. We should have a way for you to at least see the time frame, and then ultimately probably choose the time frame to kind of like run that and use the time frame that you want. So, and then related question. So yeah, kind of like, I think it's the same question. Let me just write this kind of poll. What I want to know is to make sure that we're developing the features that you want. So I'm just going to ask in a poll, what's the biggest and most important feature you want us to develop? I'm just going to ask this question. What's the biggest and most important feature you want us to develop? I'm going to put that in the poll, and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save as webinar poll, and I'm going to launch this poll. So you should see that on the bottom of your screen or somewhere. It says poll, what's the biggest and most important feature you want us to develop? If you just sort of type your answer into that poll and just tell us what you think is the most important feature you want us to develop, that'd be super helpful for us. We're always kind of sifting through users' comments and then using that to inform our roadmap. I know probably some of you have already voted on our message boards, and some of you have already asked questions here in the Q&A in terms of what you want. But if you'd be so kind as to list kind of like what is the most important feature that you want us to develop, that's always super helpful for us.
Rob,
Yep.
I did have one other question as well. I answered it live, but I thought it would be good for you to speak to as well. I didn't record the name, but the comment was, it would be helpful if Koyfin could link watch lists to model portfolios. Watch lists are my security universe from which I design portfolios.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's probably a workflow where we can have a toggle or some kind of option in your model portfolio where you can say like save this as a watch list or connect this to a watch list, so that's automatically kind of connected. That's a great idea. We'll definitely consider that and try and do that. Cool. Any other questions? I think we have. Are you planning to add forecasting functionality, model portfolios project into the future? Yes. So we are going to be thinking about kind of, I think, risk sensitivity and just I'd say thinking about that in a couple of ways. One is, how do you think about the portfolio performance in the future? So if you wanted to show a client some projected return based on whether it's a Monte Carlo simulation or based on historical returns, how do you do that? So that's number one. And then the second question is, how do you, really, I'd say, understand the sensitivity of the portfolio to different assumptions? So if I wanted to understand my portfolio versus a shift in the growth rate of economic growth or interest rates or commodity prices, or yields, how does that impact my portfolio? So I think that's another way to think about it. And I'd say the third way to think about it is just, what is my portfolio income? I know this has been discussed on some webinars before, but just thinking about kind of portfolio income, and then just given my portfolio that I create, how do I think about the potential income generation, and the income over the next several kind of periods, whether it's months or quarters. So those are kind of like all things that we're creating. So appreciate that feedback. Thank you very much, Christine. Appreciate the nice words. Um, for another question, will the future proposal functionality incorporate the tax implications and incorporate a tax implementation analysis? It's a interesting question. The short answer is not in version 1. We haven't thought about it. I don't see the name of who's asking this question for tax implementation. If you wanted to email me and kind of talk to me about what that would look like and how we should think about it, that'd be great. My name is Rob. My email is rob@koyfin.com. Geez. My name is Rob and my email is rob@koyfin.com. So please email me. Can we create custom stress periods? There's no way to do that today. That's an interesting suggestion. What you can do is you can take a portfolio, put it in a graph, and customize the date that you're looking at. So obviously that's a little bit of a manual process. So if you wanted to see how the portfolio did over, let's say, the market rebound over the last 6 months, or some drawdown that we don't have on the list, you could do that in the graph, and you could compare it versus another ETF or portfolio. In terms of adding custom periods to the table, interesting suggestion. We'll put that on the list and think about how to do that. Anyone else? Okay, I am going to close the poll in just 30 seconds. So if you didn't answer the poll of what is the most important feature you want created, you have about 20 seconds to do that before the poll ends. About half of the people have participated, so appreciate you giving us your feedback. Really valuable to us. And I will be, if there are no more questions, I'll be wrapping up here and giving you all kind of part of the hour back. Oh, so David wants to know, does any portfolio track intraday performance? In my portfolios, which is the actual portfolio that we just released, that does track intraday performance. So that'll be live throughout the day. It'll track P&L throughout the day. Model portfolios do not track intraday performance just because those are allocation models. And so typically you'll have, if you have a mix of ETFs and mutual funds, it's a little bit hard sometimes if one is trading once per day and the ETF is live to show performance. So our model portfolios are once a day. They get updated overnight. Our My Portfolio feature that we just released, if you want to input the share weightings there, that's going to be tracked live throughout the day. Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. Really appreciate you joining this webinar. We'll continue to roll out the functionality and features that you all want. And we always appreciate your feedback and appreciate you being users and customers of Koyfin. Thanks so much and have a great day.